A bystander glances over, hesitating like he might step in, but then he quickly looks away, deciding it's not his problem. That's how it always is. People don't step in until it's too late. Sarah knows that better than anyone. The man gripping her wheelchair chuckles. You got an attitude for someone in your position. He tilts his head, his confidence bleeding into arrogance. What are you gonna do? Run me over? His friends laugh again, and Sarah exhales slowly. They don't get it. They see her chair, the stroller, the quiet way she carries herself, and they assume she's fragile, helpless. But Sarah wasn't always like this. There was a time when her name alone sent people running, a time when she operated in the shadows, a time when hesitation meant failure, and failure meant something worse. She remembers those nights, the way she moved unseen, the way she calculated every breath, every step. She was trained to be a ghost, a weapon no one ever saw coming. But after what happened, the mission that changed everything, she walked away. She promised herself she'd never go back. But right now, staring at these men, feeling the weight of their arrogance, she knows one thing for sure. Some instincts never die. She lifts her eyes to the man in front of her, her expression calm, controlled. This is your last warning, she says softly. But they just laugh. They have no idea they're already running out of time. The air shifts. It's subtle, something the men don't notice, but Sarah feels it in her bones. A quiet moment before the storm. The man gripping her wheelchair tightens his fingers, his smirk still plastered on his face. Look at you, he says. Acting tough. But let's be real. What are you actually gonna do? Sarah doesn't answer. She just watches him, her gaze steady, controlled. If he knew what he was looking at, he'd see the warning signs, her posture, the way her muscles are coiled, the way she's already mapped out every move in her head. But he doesn't see it. None of them do. One of the other men steps closer, arms crossed. Come on, let's not waste time. She's not worth it. That should be the moment they walk away. That should be the moment they realize they're playing a game they don't understand. But instead, the first man laughs. He grips the handles of her wheelchair tighter and gives it a sudden jolt, trying to shake her, trying to rattle her. A mistake. Sarah feels the sharp pull, but she doesn't react the way they expect. No flinch, no fear, just quiet calculation. Her heart is steady, her breathing controlled. The part of her she buried, the one trained for moments exactly like this, stirs awake. Then, the moment that changes everything. The man's foot nudges the stroller again, harder this time. The tiny sound from inside is enough to send something ice-cold through Sarah's veins. Every muscle in her body locks into place. She could have let this go. She could have walked away, let them have their little moment of power. But now they've crossed the one line they never should have touched. For the first time, Sarah moves, just slightly, a shift of weight. A slow, deliberate motion as her fingers press against the armrest of her chair. The man is still grinning. He doesn't realize that he just triggered something he can't undo. The last warning has passed. And Sarah is done waiting. Sarah's grip tightens, her heartbeat steady, her breath even. The world around her seems to slow, every detail sharpening. The scuff marks on the man's boots, the way his fingers twitch as he grips her wheelchair, the flicker of amusement still in his eyes. He has no idea. None of them do. But then, something unexpected. A voice. Hey, let her go. For the first time, the bullies hesitate. Their laughter dies down as they turn toward the sound. A man steps forward from the crowd, someone Sarah doesn't recognize. He looks unsure, nervous even, but he doesn't back down. His hands are clenched, his shoulders tense. He's afraid, but he's still standing there. The leader of the group snorts. Mind your business, tough guy. But something has shifted. People are watching now. The bystanders who once pretended not to see are now paying attention. The energy has changed. Sarah could use this. She could let this new variable play out, let the situation diffuse itself. But deep inside, she already knows. this isn't over. These men aren't the type to back down just because someone spoke up. If anything, the interruption only fuels their need to prove themselves. The leader turns back to Sarah, his smirk returning. Looks like you've got a fan. He leans in slightly. But I don't think he's gonna save you. Sarah exhales slowly. If only he knew. She reaches a familiar corner, a place where the streetlights cast long shadows. The stroller rolls smoothly beside her, her baby sleeping peacefully inside, unaware of the chaos that just unfolded. That's all that matters. That's why she walked away from her old life. For this, for the quiet moments, for the kind of peace she never thought she'd have. But peace never lasts forever. Sarah knows what that message on the phone meant. Someone still knows who she is. Someone is still watching. And if they sent her name as a target, it means her past isn't as buried as she hoped. She takes a breath, feeling the weight of it all settling in. She could run again, disappear like she's done before. But as she glances down at her child, she knows that's not an option. She won't live in fear. She reaches into her pocket, pulling out a small, nearly unnoticeable device. With a press of a button, the phone she left behind goes dark, wiped clean, no trace of her left. A precaution she learned long ago. Then, without a word, she disappears into the night, blending into the world once more. The ghosts of her past may still be chasing her, but Sarah isn't the one who should be afraid. Because if they come for her, they'll learn the same lesson those men did tonight. She warned them, and she never warns twice. Jake didn't look away as Marcus parked a few yards away and stepped out. He'd moved with the same quiet control as Jake, his gaze scanning the scene with the sharp awareness of a man who had seen trouble before. He didn't need to ask what was going on. He could read it all in the way the bikers stood, the way Lisa kept herself steady, the way Jake's muscles were just a little too still, like a storm holding its breath before breaking loose. Marcus took his time walking over, his boots crunching against the gravel. When he stopped beside Jake, he gave a small nod. "Didn't think I'd be meeting you like this," he said, his voice calm but firm. Jake kept his eyes on the bearded man. "Neither did I." For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of water lapping against the docks. Then, just when it seemed like the bikers might decide to back down, the bearded man let out a low chuckle. "All right," he said, holding up his hands. "We get it. You guys are tough. No need to get all worked up." He took a step back, nodding to his crew. "Come on, boys. Let's not waste any more time here." Relief flickered in Lisa's chest. Maybe it was over. Maybe they had finally realized they'd messed with the wrong people. But just as the bikers turned toward their bikes, something unexpected happened. A car pulled up near the entrance of the lot, its headlights cutting through the dimming light. The door swung open, and out stepped a man Lisa instantly recognized. Ron Avery, the owner of a rival fishing business down the road. Her stomach sank. Ron had never liked their family's success. He had always been the type to play dirty when competition got too tough. And now, the way he leaned against his car with a knowing smirk told her everything she needed to know. This wasn't a random run-in. This was planned. Lisa's breath caught in her throat as Ron Avery leaned against his car, arms crossed, watching the scene unfold like he had been waiting for this moment. The bikers, who had been on the verge of leaving, paused. A slow grin spread across the bearded man's face as he turned back toward Jake. Jake felt it too, that shift in the air, the way everything suddenly felt planned, deliberate. This wasn't just some random group of bikers looking for trouble. This was something bigger. Ron pushed himself off the car, walking toward them with lazy confidence. "Didn't expect to see you back in town, Jake," he said, his voice slick with fake politeness. "You always had a way of showing up at the worst possible time." Jake's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. He didn't need to. The history between their families spoke for itself. Lisa's small fishing business had outpaced Ron's for years, and he had never taken it well. The fact that he had gone this far, bringing in bikers to intimidate his mother, told Jake everything he needed to know. Ron glanced at the bearded man, then back at Jake. "See, I was just telling my friends here how business around these docks works. Some people don't know when to step aside. They keep pushing, keep taking what isn't theirs. He turned his gaze to Lisa. Figured they needed a little reminder. Jake's hands curled into fists at his sides, but he kept his expression unreadable. He had dealt with men like Ron before, people who hid behind others, who pulled strings, and let others do their dirty work. He wasn't going to take the bait. Marcus stepped closer, his presence a silent warning. "You made your point," he said, voice steady. "Time to move on." But Ron just chuckled, shaking his head. "See, that's the thing," he said. "I don't think we're done here." The bearded man smirked and reached into his jacket, and in that split second, Jake's instincts kicked in. Before anyone could blink, Jake moved. His hand shot out, grabbing the biker's wrist before he could pull anything out. With a swift twist, he forced the man's arm behind his back, sending him stumbling forward. The other bikers reacted, but Marcus was already there, stepping in with the same quick precision. Lisa stepped back as the scene unfolded in an instant. Jake and Marcus handling the situation with practiced ease, their movements sharp and controlled. Within seconds, the bikers were backing off, realizing they had severely miscalculated. Ron's smirk faded. He had expected intimidation to be enough. He hadn't counted on Jake being here. Jake let go of the bearded man, who stumbled back, rage flickering in his eyes, but hesitation keeping him from doing anything more. Jake turned to Ron. "This is your one chance," he said, his voice cold and steady. "You ever come near my mother again, we won't be having another conversation." Imagine this. You're walking down the street, minding your own business, when you see a woman in a wheelchair struggling to get past a group of men blocking the sidewalk. They glance at her, smirking, and instead of moving, they make it harder. One of them even kicks a rock into her path, laughing as she stops short. To them, she's just an easy target, an inconvenience they can push around for fun. But what they don't know is that they just made the worst mistake of their lives. This isn't just any woman. Her name is Sarah. To the world, she looks like an ordinary mother, someone who has faced more than her fair share of challenges. Life put her in that wheelchair, but it never took away her strength. She's not weak, not helpless, far from it. Because before she was a mom, before she was the woman people underestimated, she was something else, something dangerous. Sarah was trained for years in combat, tactics, and survival. She wasn't just good, she was one of the best. But after a job went south, she left that life behind, choosing peace over violence. She thought she had buried that part of herself forever. But today, these men have unknowingly dug it back up. At first, she tries to ignore them. She's learned to pick her battles, to let things go. But when one of them leans in, grabbing the handles of her wheelchair like it's a toy, her patience runs out. She looks up at him, her eyes calm, unreadable. He has no idea that he's seconds away from realizing the truth. The moment is tense, the air thick with something unspoken. And just like that, everything is about to change. Because these bullies, they have no idea who they're messing with. And Sarah, she's about to remind them exactly why you should never judge someone by what you see on the surface. What happens next? You'll have to stick around to find out. The man gripping Sarah's wheelchair smirks, his buddies chuckling behind him like this is all just a game. "What's the matter, lady? Need some help?" His voice drips with fake kindness, but his grip tightens, and Sarah feels the weight of his arrogance pressing down on her. She glances around. The street isn't empty, but people are looking away, pretending not to see what's happening. It's always like this. Bystanders frozen in their own little worlds, hoping trouble won't notice them. But trouble has already arrived, and these men have no idea just how deep they stepped into it. Sarah takes a slow breath, steadying herself. She could end this right now, but she hesitates. Old habits tell her to strike, to teach them a lesson they won't forget, but she's not that person anymore. She left that life behind for a reason. But then one of the men nudges the stroller parked beside Sarah's chair. A soft coo comes from inside, and her heart tightens. That's when everything shifts. They don't just see her as weak, they see her as powerless. And worse, they think they can toy with her, with what matters most to her. The man at the wheelchair laughs. Relax, we're just having a little fun. Sarah's fingers curl around the armrest. Fun. That word lingers in her mind, pulling her back to a time when she was the one people feared. The days when she didn't hesitate, when she made split-second decisions that meant life or death. She spent years trying to bury that part of herself, trying to be something else, someone else. But looking at these men, hearing their laughter, watching them inch closer, she realizes something. Some people mistake kindness for weakness. Some people don't recognize danger until it's staring them right in the face. Sarah meets the man's gaze, her expression unreadable. "You should step back now," she says quietly. The man just grins wider. Or what? A small, knowing smile flickers across Sarah's lips. He has no idea what's coming. The man doesn't move. If anything, he leans in closer, his smirk widening like this is all a joke. His friends shift around him, chuckling, waiting to see how far they can push things. Sarah doesn't flinch. She just watches, calculating, reading every little movement, every shift in weight, every sign of hesitation they don't even realize they're showing. The stroller beside her shifts slightly as her baby stirs, a tiny sound breaking through the low hum of the street. Sarah's fingers twitch. They're too close to her child, too close to a line they don't even know exists.